I want to thank everyone who is joining us today. I see we have a lot of participants and still more joining. We'll take a quick look on Operation Rising Lion, what is happening right now, what is happening to date. Then we'll dive into the cyber arena with a quick look into Iran's cyber ecosystem, known players, activities, and then we'll give you a quick brief and overview of what's been happening in the cyber arena since the start of the conflicts, and we'll finish off with just a few words on what to expect and how to mitigate things that are happening. With me today, and you can turn off your cameras now, let's join us. We've got Yuval Mond, one of our top CTI analysts and sales engineers. Yuval is based in Bangkok. And we also have Victoria with us. Just want to confirm that Victoria is here. I'll turn her video on. Victoria? Hold on.
Yes, I'm here, but yeah.
Now? There you are.
Hello.
We had good. So Victoria is now, and she's delivering. She's joining us from our headquarters in Tel Aviv. I'm in my home office just outside of Tel Aviv. So with that, I'll hand it over to Yuval and Victoria. So Yuval, go ahead, take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Just making sure. Yes, I'm being heard.
Yes. Yuval,
okay,
we can hear you. All good.
Thank you very much. So, hello, everyone. Thank you, Amir, first of all, for the introduction. As Amir said, we're going to start this webinar with I would say, short, very high-level overview of the military operation, Operation Rising Lion, and we're going to discuss how events have unfolded so far in the military arena, as well as some insights that we may introduce on what could be the next steps from each sides of this conflict, which one of the sides is involved in this conflict. So Amir, you control the presentation. If you can just quickly run to the next slide.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. So we'll start with quickly providing some context, I think, to this conflict. Now, as opposed to what could be seen as I would say, like an out of the blue military strike that was launched by Israel, what we've been witnessing in the past week since the operation started is, in fact, I would say, the pinnacle of a shadow war that has been fought, of course, in different volumes, obviously, between Israel and Iran for the past 46 years. Actually, since the rise of the Ayatollah regime and the establishment of the Islamic Republic in Iran in 1979. And since the emergence of this regime, it has been, and of course still is, a source of, I would say, significant instability in the region, and poses a challenge, of course, to Israel, but to a great extent also to the entire Western world, I would say, in general. And throughout the years, the Iranian regime has never hidden its intentions to bring about the elimination of Israel, or what they often refer to as the Zionist entity. That's how they refer to Israel. And in parallel to all that, to all their actions, and we'll discuss a few other actions that they did over the past 46 years, Iran has been developing a nuclear program, which, at least officially, was presented as peaceful. But when you take into consideration like their, I would say, aggressive rhetoric against Israel, the lack of transparency, the continued pursuit of the program, despite the international pressure, this all have raised serious concerns in the global community, of course, also in Israel. The fear has always been that Iran could become a nuclear armed state. And this move could destabilize, I would say, the entire regional balance of power, and possibly also the global balance of power, to have another nuclear power that is controlled by an extremist regime that could, as we said, destabilize the entire region. So this shadow war between Israel and Iran was primarily fought through proxies that Iran, I would say, was working quite hard to cultivate and groom over the years. Effectively, what Iran created was what we call like a ring of fire around Israel. Key actors like Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in Gaza Strip, the Houthis, in Yemen in the south, and all this, I would say, shadow war has now escalated into a full-scale conventional war. This is what we're seeing in the past week. And the declared objective from Israel's side, who initiated this operation, was to neutralize Iran's nuclear capabilities and military threats. Because according to Israeli officials, senior officials, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other top officials from the military circles, Israel had clear intelligence, or clear, I'd say, intelligence indications that Iran was, maybe we'll say, like on the verge of militarizing its entire nuclear program, essentially becoming a nuclear power. And Israel has repeatedly made it clear that it cannot and will not tolerate such a development, because Israel views such development as an immediate threat to the existence of the country. So this is, just to put us all in, like, obviously the bigger context, and drawing a little bit few years to understand, like, the tensions between the two countries. Amir, if you can, go to the next slide. Okay, thank you. So what actually happened, like, in the battlefield in this operation so far? So as a start, I mean, this operation started with Israeli airplanes launching preemptive strikes and covert drone operations that were conducted by Mossad agents actually operating on Iranian soils. These actions have targeted top nuclear scientists in the nuclear program and IRGC, like the Revolutionary Guard, and military commanders as well, and also, of course, nuclear facilities, which were, I would say, also significantly damaged. I mean, those nuclear facilities in the first waves of the military I would say, aerial campaign by Israel. In parallel, Israel claims, like, what we call, like, air superiority or air dominance in Iran, with like 2/3 to half of Iran's missile launchers already being destroyed in the first few waves of the attacks, including their entire air defense systems that have been disabled. Sorry, and this has been a tremendous achievement for the Israel in the battlefield, because now it allows Israeli airplanes to roam almost freely in the skies of Tehran and the entire western Iran. And as the days go by, Israel has been, like, I would say, expanding these attacks in Iran and targeting more nuclear facilities, as well as, like, expanding to oil infrastructures and other critical infrastructure in Iran. The Israeli airstrikes, we also need to mention, have caused, like, of course, have brought about hundreds of Iranian casualties that were reported, thousands people injured, and of course, significant damage to infrastructure and the entire backbone of the country's economy. Iran, on the other hand, has responded after a day or two with hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones that were targeting civilian population centers in Israel. Need to say that most of these attacks have been intercepted, but with no 100% I would say success. And still, we are reporting of dozens of Israeli civilians that were killed in these attacks, hundreds being wounded, and the widespread damage that has been reported to, I would say, buildings, facilities, establishments throughout Israel. Amir, if you can turn to the next slide. Great. So, although we are only 1 week into this operation, I think the main question everyone is obviously asking themselves is, okay, so what's next? I mean, where does this operation leading to? And this, of course, changes, from each of the sides that are involved in the conflict. From Israel's side, having the upper hand, at least for now, it is mainly a question of what is Israel's exit strategy. I mean, what does it wish to achieve, or perhaps how far Israel wants to go with this campaign, with this operation, with this war, and even if you put it, like, more accurately, how far can Israel go with this, by gaining the momentum that it currently has? Are we talking about a complete dismantling of the Iranian nuclear program, and whether can Israel do it on their own? Are we talking about the regime change, which is a whole different ballgame, although, of course, it has, like, I would say, more extended repercussions. But this is at least, at this moment in time, perhaps a little bit more ambitious. Or are we talking about, if we want to be, like, a bit more, like, slightly more modest, we can say, perhaps more realistic approach, maybe Israel wants to get a better hand in the negotiations that will start following the ceasefire and the end of the war. Because in the end of the day, the stated objective from Israeli official, and once again, remember, the stated objective from Israel is to remove the nuclear and military threat of Iran. This can be interpreted in different levels, on different scales, you can say, what exactly is going to be Israel's exit point from this conflict. And when we look at it from Iran's perspective, and given like how the war has been going on for so far from their side, there is a big question of what will be Iran's next move, or the regime's next move, you can say, because obviously, as we have seen, this is a radical extremist regime. But what will it do, with its back against the wall, or push in the corner? You can choose whatever metaphor you prefer in this regard, because. And I would say, like, in contrast to, I would say, the media image of this regime, I think history shows, and few history instances show that in previous instances, when this regime was in similar, I would say, crossroads or junctures, that it had to choose between hard, strict ideology and the national interest, like, realpolitik, you can call it, it has usually preferred the national interest to ensure the survival of the regime. You can see a few examples, starting from the Iraq War in between 1980 to 1988, which they were eventually forced to end with Supreme Leader Khomeini. The negotiations for a nuclear deal in 2013 is another example, where the Supreme Leader Khamenei, Khamenei actually approved to step into those negotiations despite the fact that they were conducted with the United States and the big Satan, as it is often called by Iranian leaders. And more recently, the deal that they struck with Saudi Arabia in March 2023, by the way, brokered by China at that time, for the reconciliation in the Gulf region. This was also, I would say, a crossroad or juncture where the regime preferred to succumb, you can say, to national interest instead of pursuing a hardline ideology. But no one, I would say, guarantees this would be the same thing for now. And if Iran chooses to adopt a hardline here and like continue to fight, practically not surrender or walk into, I would say, like diplomatic path, then this could lead to what we call like a war of attrition, which could be bad, of course, for both sides. But we need to say that this is not an unlikely scenario at this point in time. The U.S. involvement, the third bullet here. So for the moment, it still remains unclear, and it changes, from one tweet from the U.S. president to another. But it is widely seen that it can be viewed that the U.S. involvement, or the role that the United States is going to play in this conflict is going to be could shift the entire course of the war. Because whether the U.S. I would say enters this war alongside Israel and actually proactively participating in attacking Iran's nuclear facilities, this could bring once again, first of all, it brings to the table advanced capabilities that could, on one hand, bring to a quicker end, or bringing Iran to its knees and forcing it to surrender. Or it could bring Iran to retaliate by targeting, U.S. interest in the region, military bases in the Gulf region, closing the Straits of Hormuz, which is another, I would say, a leverage that Iran holds and can be used. And it can bring, of course, more countries into the game. It can have all kinds of global, I would say, implications. But the U.S., of course, can also decide to proactively, quote unquote, not participate in the military campaign, and force both sides, even Israel, with the upper hand now, to the negotiations table. So this still, I would say, remains in question. So far, this from statement, it looks like the US is going to choose the more, I would say, aggressive path and enter the war. But these things can change, in a second. The fourth bullet, I have to say, the role of China and Russia hasn't been very active so far, and at least from now, very unlikely that this will change. At least as things look like at the moment, Russia being overoccupied with the Ukraine war, and China not willing to take sides. I mean, from obvious reasons regarding their inclination towards, I would say, Iran and Russia, and the fact that this side is currently has the lower hand. But we know the nature of such global events, and this is a global event for all terms and purposes. And they can take, unexpected turns. And if those countries, either one of them or both of them, are dragged into it or drawn into this campaign, this could also have grave repercussions on how this conflict evolves. So this, just to cover the next steps. Obviously, we cannot. It's going to be hard to forecast, but this, the main players that will dictate the course of the next developments. Amir, if you can jump to this slide, you can stay on this slide. I'll just say that we're going to look now at the cyber front. I mean, I will not steal too much of Victoria's thunder here. Just maybe provide once again a very high level overview before handing it over to her for a more deep dive. So if you can please move to the next and last slide, promise, from my side. Okay, so the cyber dimension of this Israel-Iran shadow war in the past 40 years, of cyber dimension maybe for the last 20 or 30 years. This has been an active and persistent, I would say, arena throughout the years. And of course, now it is intensifying in parallel to the military campaign. But, it is still believed that the cyber capabilities or the cyber, I would say, manifestation, the cyber theater, still remains large in the shadows, also now when we are talking about an all-out war. And if you look at the few bullets that we have here, first of all, not recent weeks, but since the beginning of the campaign, we are seeing threat actors that are linked with Iran, and of course, Victoria will mention a few of them in the next slides, have escalated their attacks against Israeli digital infrastructure. And there are reports, that indicate a 700% increase or surge in attempted intrusions and defacement campaigns since the beginning of this Operation Rising Lion. The activity of these groups is mostly targeting government services, transportation systems, critical infrastructures, and they are using methods, like malware, DDoS attacks, phishing campaign. These are the main things that we get to see at this point in time. Israel, on its side, is of course believed to have, carried out, alongside the preemptive military strike, there were for sure, nothing is for sure, but possibly aligned or coordinated with cyber operations that supported the military strikes against, the air defense systems, the missile launcher, the missile targeting platforms, the communication channels in Iran. So while the attribution of such cyber attacks remains unofficial, of course, it is pretty much consistent, I would say, with past offensive capabilities that Israel is believed to have obtained. So although we cannot, there is no official, I would say, approval from Israel's side, is very much believed that the military strikes, the airstrikes, were accompanied by, I would say, very aggressive cyber operations that supported them, and this will probably continue to be the case. But as we said, still, I believe that most of Israeli cyber capabilities, also Iranian cyber capabilities, are not surfacing at the moment. Lastly, the last bullet, as you can obviously imagine, the cyber front remains and will remain, of course, a crucial battleground, and we can call it maybe a key component in this war. It helps each side involved in this conflict to gain strategic advantages, and also doing that without direct attribution, as we will see in a second. So I'll stop now. Thank you very much for your time. I'll hand it over to Victoria. Thank you very much. Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Thank you, Yuval. This is really important context to understand what we are going to talk about now, and specifically some more granular cyber operations that we've seen. So before diving into what is happening currently, let's just align that Israel has historically been a prime target for ideologically motivated cyber operations. We've seen different prominent Iranian state-linked actors. You may be familiar with some names like APT-34, APT-35, muddy water. They engage in espionage, data theft, social engineering, you name it, to achieve their goals. And they are also acting in parallel with, like in real world, we have proxies. So here we have proxies too, Lebanese Hezbollah cyber unit, various Arabic-speaking groups that are operating out of Gaza, out of Palestinian Authority, out of other states. And this is, of course, accompanied with activity from different activists with similar agenda and sometimes acting under control of nation states. You may have heard the name of Handala that became pretty active recently, and there is a ton of actors participating in the conflict. The target sectors obviously consistently include government, defense, critical infrastructure, and this basically reflects strategic intent to disrupt and to gather intelligence. So understanding these traditional actors really helps us to anticipate future threats. Now let's go to the next slide and talk about escalation over the last 2 years, because this is also very important context to understand what's going on now. The Israel-Hamas war that started 2 years ago when Hamas attacked Israel significantly escalated cyber attacks. We observed a rise in activity with different pro-Palestinian hacker groups aligning with Iranian goals and actually emerging globally. Common tactics, as we've seen in many attacks, include website defacement, DDoS attacks, data leaks, also psychological influence operations, often delivered for phishing, and more. And what is important, that targeting extended beyond Israel to Europe and to the US, and basically impacted all pro-Israel and Western states. We've seen hacktivists very quickly reacting to different aid that was supplied to Israel, and even just pro-Israel statement can trigger a wave of DDoS attack on the country's organizations. Now let's go to the current round of tensions, which obviously triggered more activity, as Yuval mentioned. We've seen a spike in hacktivist claims, though I must say that many are exaggerated and they lack clear evidence. And yes, most attacks remain unsophisticated. They focus on DDoS, they focus on defacement. This is what we see, but they can still be disruptive. Again, crucial to remember, this targeting is not limited to Israel. Allies and other Western nations will also be in the crosshairs. On one of the screenshots on the left, you can see a post from Mysterious Team Bangladesh. That's a hacktivist team. They threaten Jordan, Saudi Arabia to attack their infrastructure if these states take certain actions to support Israel. We've also seen threats to UAE, and of course, the US could be a primary target, especially with all the recent developments. We also observed more alliances formed by hacktivist groups. This is something we noticed last year, mentioned in our yearly report, if you had a chance to read it. And we expect more alliances to be formed. Certainly, these tensions trigger different collectives to unite. This image, for example, shows a few of them. However, again, when speaking about hacktivists, it's important to distinguish the actual impact, because some of these alliances is just noise, and they primarily involve simply forwarding messages in the Telegram channels for solidarity. And some of them do signify some genuine joint attacks and coordination of resources for more impactful disruptions. So now that we've set the stage, let's go over more specific attacks that we've seen in recent days. This is one more example that illustrates how such hacktivist groups that usually use DDoS defacement actually use cybercrime services to effectively attack their targets. So on the left, you can see a post in the Telegram channel of hacktivist team in Taid, which operates as a part of Holy League, which is another pro-Palestinian alliance. And they claim to have targeted with a DDoS attack the website for City Ride. It's an Israeli ride-sharing company. And what is interesting, that this claim explicitly mentioned Tanjiro C2. Now, what is Tanjiro C2? If we search in the cybercrime platforms, we see that it refers to a service that offers command and control service for launching cyber attacks. The details indicate that this is a paid service, and actually looking at the pricing structure, we can see that it's likely DDoS for hire service. It offers some options for concurrent attacks, for attack durations, and it's actually pretty cheap. So the mention of the service by Indeed suggests that they leveraged it to carry out the claimed action against city right. Therefore, it is really beneficial to monitor the infrastructure that can be used by these ideologically motivated actors. Now let's go to the next example and another case besides the usual data that we see. This group here claims to have successfully identified some infrastructure behind the International Atomic Energy Agency systems. They found an open port and they're sharing this information, spreading it, which can attract all sorts of other bad actors, not just the ones with political agendas, to participate in the illicit action. And that's one important thing to know about the cybercrime ecosystem, that once something is shared, anyone can basically go and use it however they please. If we go to the next example, we can see that several hacktivists related to Unified Islamic Cyber Resistance of Iran claim to attack a company in Israel, specifically a resource related to traffic control and parking, a company that provides technological solutions for the field of traffic control. As you can see, the attack involved the defacement of something that we suppose can be operational control interface, because maybe it's really small on the screenshot, but the proof that they provided has a local IP on it, which suggests that it could be internal compromise. And it's actually pretty interesting how hacktivists sometimes just target weak public-facing applications without even really knowing who they're hitting. If you look at the post that was published in the channel of this group, it looks heavily LLM generated. The language is too formal, it's generic, they have emojis, and they don't even have the company's name right. So in cases like that, most likely attackers don't even know who they're hitting, and they might just be scanning for easy targets and not doing any deep research into the company's real identity or affiliations. So that's crucial to remember if you think that you have nothing to do with defense or critical infrastructure sector and you won't be attacked. Unfortunately, this is something that could happen. Now let's talk about state-sponsored campaigns, because of course, beyond hacktivists, we expect some nation-state controlled operations that sometimes masquerade as hacktivists. This is something we observed over the last years, not only with pro-Iranian, pro-Palestinian groups, but also with pro-Russian groups. So that's a trend that we are seeing. And we also see a surge of disinformation and phishing campaigns targeting Israelis, some of them likely orchestrated by Iran. Israeli authorities have actually warned about disinformation campaigns that instruct people not to go to the shelter because there might be a terror attack, or people are getting calls that impersonate home front command. And it is, of course, important to be vigilant, because while there is no official state attribution so far, these kinds of widespread campaigns targeting a lot of Israelis, I think some from KELA also got these calls. These widespread campaigns can be a coordinated effort by some well-resourced actors. And speaking about Israeli actions, as Yuval mentioned, there are no specific details about cyber warfare that was used by Israel alongside military strikes, but it is likely that such capabilities were used and that these were advanced capabilities. You might have also seen in the news that some state-aligned groups are also joining. Predatory Sparrow, this is a pro-Israel hacker group with advanced capabilities, claimed responsibility for a major breach at Iranian crypto exchange. They extracted source code, they actually leaked it online, also internal data. They claimed to steal $75 million, and they hinted that they'll be targeting other critical infrastructure. Before that, they actually managed to disrupt Iran's bank SEPA services. And you've obviously seen, this is not something that was attributed to any actor, but there were Israel-related hackers who took control of the Iranian TV to demonstrate calls to protest, which is another skilled operation. So from Israeli side, we see less noise and more interest in operations. Let's go to the next slide, please, to speak about hacktivists as a nation state disguise. Cyber Avengers, it's a pro-Iranian group that was previously sanctioned by the US. It's now active again, is reportedly collaborating with some group that calls itself APT Iran. Please don't pay attention to the name. It's not assigned by Mandiant. It's something that the group has chosen for themselves. And this is actually a Persian-speaking Telegram hacking collective channel. It exists for quite some time, but it was only sharing news about vulnerabilities and some cyber-related issues, so nothing malicious. But when Israel attacked Iran, the group joined the effort against Israel, and it claimed to be using some destructive attacks. They claim to be using ALF-V and Logbit, which we suppose is leaked source code and not the actual kind of being affiliate of these ransom groups. And it seems that their goal is to cause widespread disruption, of course, rather than to seek a payout. They've allegedly targeted some hospital servers, financial sector systems, and they leak different information in their channels. Again, as we observed in previous cases, something that can be really easy accessible by other actors, by financially motivated cyber criminals, and used against these targets. And why have I mentioned Cyber Avengers? Because we've seen them forwarding one of the messages of APT Iran, which is a leak of some Rafael emails. And that suggests that there could be some sort of cooperation. Maybe that's another disguise of Iranian nation state actors. Next slide, please. Thank you. So there is another layer of complexity. Pro-Russian hacktivist groups cannot be silent, and they're also publicly declaring their positions. It often aligns with anti-Western sentiments, and it basically adds to the overall cyber noise and threats. This is actually not something new. We've seen a lot of pro-Russian hacktivists joining pro-Palestinian hacktivists when Israel-Hamas war emerged. So this is only something to expect in the future, and to pay attention when you do threat modeling, to pay attention to Russian-speaking groups too. This here you can see a statement from Z Alliance, a pro-Russian group, explicitly declared that they will not obey anyone else's rules and will support Iran. And obviously that's a clear geopolitical alignment influencing cyber operations. So the last thing I wanted to talk today is related to all the claims that we see and trying to navigate. The attacks that I mentioned yesterday, these are just the tip of the iceberg. These are just few selected attacks. We see a lot of them each day. And it is vital to recognize that many hacktivist claims lack evidence. They exaggerate the impact. It creates a very challenging environment for incident response, for attribution. And we, of course, believe that verification through threat intelligence is crucial to separate fact from fiction. A good example here, one of the hacktivist groups claimed that Israel Rail is down. So when you read this, it sounds like Israel Railway has stopped working and people cannot get on trains. And when you read the message more closely, you see that they speak about DDoS attack because they provide a link to checkhost, which is a site accessibility report that merely indicates that the website of Israel Rail was not up during a specific period of time. But it actually gets better than that, because if you see at the actual site that they attacked, it's israelrail.com. This is not the website of the National Railway Company. This is just a travel company that organizes tours around Israel using trains. So that's a pretty common trick. Activists will target a site with a similar name to make their claim sound bigger than it is. And it really highlights why it's so important to dig into these claims and not just take them at face value, especially when the impact seems huge. We often see activists also reusing data that was previously leaked. They also take credit for non-cyber related things. So for example, think of recent power outage in Europe that was immediately claimed to be attacked by Darkstorm, but in the end, it was not cyber related at all. So it's crucial to assess if the actor is even capable to perform such an attack before proceeding with any actions. And why is this so important? If there are government employees here on the call, it can happen that you decide to instruct local cyber forces and companies to go on high alert for something that isn't even real, and that's a lot of wasted effort. It's a huge drain on cybersecurity teams. It also can cause unnecessary panic if you go public. And actually, over time, people can even start losing trust in official warnings. So really, taking time to verify using reliable threat intelligence is absolute key to make sure your responses are effective. And let's conclude what we've seen for today, what we anticipate. Certainly, we have to admit the current tensions amplified the volume of cyber activity and claims, but much of what we observe is characterized by noise and by exaggeration. And despite this frequency of unsophisticated attacks and widespread claims, the fundamental landscape of cyber threats and the tactics that actors employ, whether they are state-sponsored or hacktivist, fundamentally, it has not dramatically changed with what we've seen in the recent years. So we know how to deal with that. We know how to verify that and take actions. So mitigations as follows, of course, strengthen infrastructure, make a focus on OT environments and public services, power grids, water treatment plants, transportation system heavily relies on these OT systems. Of course, prepare for dual threats. We've talked a lot about hacktivists. So they may be loud and flashy with their DDoS, with their defacement attacks, but APT is actually the one that needs attention, and defense strategy needs to be agile enough to deflect these visible disruptive attacks and simultaneously hunt for the stealthy intrusions that could lead to much more significant damage. I cannot say that enough, but be careful when attributing activity. Jumping to conclusions can lead to misdirected retaliations and wasted resources. It is crucial to have strong forensics, intelligence capabilities to determine who is behind the attack before making any significant moves. And of course, to continue on this, use threat intelligence to verify incidents, use trusted sources, collaborate with intelligence partners. We in Israel are always ready to collaborate against the threat to the Western world, and perform your independent verification. And finally, engage in proactive monitoring, keep an eye on dark web chatter, on cybercrime services trends. We've seen that cyber criminals can use financially motivated cybercrime infrastructure. They can use information about identity, credentials on sale, databases, because this is something that can be leveraged by any actors, even ideologically motivated cyber criminals, and also vice versa. Activists and even state-sponsored groups can deliberately release sensitive information for free on cybercrime forums, Telegram, Discord, you name it. They can release it to trigger more attacks by financially motivated actors. So that's all from me. Thank you for joining. If you are in Israel, please stay safe, and we are ready to answer your questions if you have any.
So thank you, Victoria, for this roundup, and thank you, Val, also as well. We do have some questions come in. We'll start addressing them. Maybe just to add one thing. Events are evolving even quicker than we can prepare this webinar. So maybe one thing we didn't touch on, but interestingly enough, just around a year ago, but less, we had a webinar series on AI. One of the topics was deep fakes and how deep fakes are going to be widely used in the future. Now, if anyone who's been going around various social channels has seen quite a lot of misinformation and a lot of use of deep fakes, both photos and video. So this is something that's really widespread. Just two things that were out there. One, talking about a downed F-35, and you can actually see an image of people around an F-35, but anyone with minimal familiarity with airplanes realizes that the F-35 they have there is basically more or less the size of an aircraft carrier. So that's obviously a deep fake. and the other was claiming and showing actually a video showing devastation at Israel's Ben Gurion airport, where again, I think anyone who's been at the Ben Gurion terminals very quickly realizes that it's not even close to looking like the Ben Gurion airport. So another thing that's going around. So yeah, interesting times. Let's start addressing some questions. We did have some questions come in. So the first one has to do with well, the Ring of Fire and the Shiite Crescent. You've all touched on this a bit. The idea that Iran has an arc of proxies and countries around Israel to destabilize the region. So maybe Yuval, you want to address that very quickly?
Yeah, I'll just say that both terms, both Ring of Fire and Shiite Crescent, they're both terms that were coined, not by Iran, but by parties outside Iran. They are, in concept they are the same, but they serve different purposes. I think when you talk about the Ring of Fire, this is mainly when you talk about Israel and the way that these countries pose the threat against Israel, or not the country. Those organizations are, I would say, circling Israel in this like metaphorical ring of fire. When we talk about the Shiite Crescent, it's a little bit more, I would say, general attribution of Iranian, and I think it relates more to the concept of exporting the revolution and the revolution concept, mobilizing Shiite and also Sunni Muslim communities in all parts of the world. Doesn't have to be necessarily across around Israel, but of course, when it happens in those countries, this also serves the purpose of the proxy war with Israel.
Okay, maybe just to add to that, just in context, so perhaps some people are not aware, but there's a narrative going on that this conflict starting now, but as you've all mentioned, and as the question mentioned, actually Israel's been in conflict with Iran's proxies for quite some time, even even before, way before the 7th of October. So it's basically the idea that Iran has been funding, arming, and training proxies across the region. First of all, encircling Israel, like we've got Hamas in Gaza, West Bank. You've got Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Syria. All these encircling, but also across the Middle East, not bordering Israel, both in Iraq and even as far as Yemen, where the idea initially there was not just about Israel, but also destabilize things vis-a-vis the Saudis. So that's pretty much their modus operandi, and what we're seeing now is just a culmination of that. Let's move on to another question. Okay, so Victoria, this one may be for you. I'm not sure if we have the answer, but which one was that? Yeah, it's around Nobitex. What is meant when we hear Nobitex as a sanctions violation tool? Are there names or assets on open sanctions we can use as starting points to track and then pivot into threat intelligence platforms like KELA? Do we have any thoughts on that?
Yes, it's been suspected that Nobitex could have been used by different actors, like by Iranian actors, by some ransomware groups to confirm their ransom to cash out. Basically, with now all the news that some internal information has been released, it's certainly something that that can be researched. I mean, now, for example, looking at what was disclosed in the channel of the predatory spiral group. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to dig in because this is something that was leaked only in the morning. But I think that it could be used to use for some information. As for open sanctions .org, maybe some names, some leads for that can be used, but that really depends on the information that was stolen and released from predatory spiral. But at least from our side, from side of KELA, I can say that we are of course closely following this group. And for example, if you have access to our platform, you can just see the original source of this leak, obtain it, and research by yourself.
Okay, great. There's one more question. I think we answered it. I think you answered or covered it. The question here came in the middle. Did we see until now any real cyber warfare activity from Iran? Do we have any damage until now in Israel?
Yeah, we don't see any significant damage, but we certainly see some attempts. Each day, Israeli Cyber Directorate and CERT release new guidelines, new phishing campaigns they observe. So this is definitely something that's happening, but we haven't seen any real damage. Obviously, if you don't look to propaganda Iranian channels, because according to these channels, Tel Aviv is on fire and the internet is not working, but you can see me doing the webinar from our office.
Yeah, and as you can see, we're all here. And maybe with that, I'll just take the opportunity once again to thank Victoria and Yuval for both building this up for us and delivering the webinar. So thanks again. And also to all the participants, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out directly to us. You know, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have, both on the cyber front and any other thing that may interest you. With that, I think we can conclude today's webinar. So again, thank you for joining us. Yuval, I'm pretty sure you're going to be safe out there in Bangkok. Victoria and I will make sure to be safe in Israel, and also to all KELA employees, which I know you've also been joining us in the webinar. Stay safe, everyone. Stay informed, and we'll meet you very soon in our next webinars. Thanks again. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you for your time.